Several of South Africa's most prominent Afrikaans newspapers and news websites have created havoc over the past 48 hours with misleading headlines in which it states that white farmers aren't allowed to export anymore. This comes 2 weeks after the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development published 2 gazettes outlining the procedure for exports from SACU and Mozambique to the EU and the UK respectively. These agreements have been in place since 2016. Theo Boshoff, CEO of Agbiz, joins us now to discuss the matter further. Let's tackle the elephant in the room first of all. Has South Africa's government decided to put a moratorium on white farmers' rights to export?
First of all, as you rightly identified, we have got existing trade agreements, both with the EU as well as the UK. And underneath that, there are a number of, it's a vast list of products with special conditions attached to them. Now, the Gazette that was published, certainly it doesn't apply to all exports going to destinations. It only applies to a limited list of products. Those are typically more processed products. Some of them are obviously very important for the agricultural sector, the likes of fruit juice, pulp, wine, certain processed dairy products as well. But it doesn't apply to fresh fruit, for instance, which is obviously one of our biggest exports. And importantly, the tariff rate quota, as they indicate that there's a certain amount of these products that we can export to these markets each year under the preferential tariff. And these permits have to be managed, the quota has to be managed by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform, Rural Development. And hence the publication that took place was the procedure and the criteria to obtain these permits. Now, very importantly, I think where the misunderstanding came about regarding the transformation requirements is it states that the criteria that needs to be applied when exporting is the department would look at a number of factors. Would look at the market share of the applicant, the amount of the quota that they are requesting, obviously to prevent the 1 or 2 companies from taking up the whole quota for the country. There's various technical requirements such as a tax clearance certificate and of course the BE certificate, and it indicates that where applicable, preference will be given to applicants with a higher BE status. Now, those BEs will be taken into consideration. But just 2 very, very important caveats to that is nowhere does it say that set a threshold or limit to state that if you do not reach a certain BE level, you will not reach a permit or you will not be given a permit. It simply says that it has to be taken into consideration along with all the other and balanced with all the other requirements. And secondly, this is not a new requirement. This has been the case every year since the permit, the tariff rate quota and permitting system has been put in place.
What is the impact of this type of misinformation on agriculture and the credibility of journalism in our country?
Yes, I think it is so critical that these things are checked before they are published. As I mentioned, there's a lot of nuances that was lost in the process. It is a technical document and a technical publication, hence I think it does require perhaps someone with experience to interpret it correctly, and one would have hoped that perhaps they look at this. As we speak, you know, both these agreements, you mentioned that they have been in place for a while. They're currently being reviewed, and the respective governments are looking to see what has been the economic impact, what has been the mental impact, what has been the social impact. And part of the social impact is, of course, to ensure that there is inclusivity and it's driving the correct societal practices within these countries. So these governments are busy looking at renewing these agreements. And we're in these discussions. It has been, both of these agreements are enormously beneficial for South Africa, and the initial studies have showcased that South Africa has benefited a lot more from this tariff-free access to the EU than the EU has necessarily benefited having tariff-free access into SADC. So it certainly is in our favor, and you know, the industry is making concerted effort to showcase, using evidence, the value of it and the need for it to be renewed and perhaps adjusted so we can make better use of it in the future. So it really is an untimely, sensitive time where I think these kind of perceptions and wrong interpretations being created will, of course, weigh on the decision makers, these foreign governments, when they look at reassessing the market access. So at this stage, you know, one really needs to be evidence-based, and we do need to have the entire industry as well as government all on board to try and get the right message, for the benefit of our industries.
Ons het 'n klomp navrae gekry, ontstelde produsente Ek dink dit is regtig baie onverantwoordelik gewees om die BEE konteks hierby te trek. Daar is ander vereistes ook waar aan voldoen moet word. Dit gaan nie net oor BEE nie. En as ons dan oor BEE moet gesels, moet ons dit binne konteks sien en 'n debat daaroor voer. En ek dink dat dit skade gedoen in Suid-Afrikaanse beeld en landbou se beeld in die breë. Die mense wat dit geïnisieer het, ek dink hulle moet maar na hulle self gaan kyk. Ek dink is hoogs onverantwoordelik. Maar ja, ons het binne die bedryf nou damage control. Ons het gister ons inligting uitgestuur. Ons het dit vanoggend nog weer inligting uitgestuur. So ek dink daar's nou hopelik 'n redelike kalmte binne die bedryf, binne die bedrywe. En dan het ons nou al deur Agbus ook al buitelandse navrae in Swaan gekry. So Theo Wolf hulle is besig om dit te hanteer. Maar ja, in ons internasionale betrekkinge, handelsooreenkomste, hierdie klas van goeders kan nie goed wees vir ons nie. Ons het nou net hierdie klomp onsekerhede en politiekery rondom AGOA, wat vir sekere bedrywe meer werd is as ander. Ons het net bloot hierdie nonsens nie in ons lewe nodig nie. Die konteks was verkeerd, die feite was verkeerd, en kom ons kry dit reg. En eintlik was hierdie baie swak journalistiek. Ek meen, daar moes daarom wragtig net 'n bietjie huiswerk gedoen gewees het. En om die waarheid te sê, ek het met een van die partye verlede week navraag gehad, en ek het vir hulle die feite gegee. Dit is net bloot geïgnoreer. So, hoekom, waarom, ja, is nie vir my om daaroor te bespiegel nie, maar ek dink ons het gedoen wat ons kon om die gemoedere bietjie te kalmeer. Maar hier gaan definitief, ek dink dit is die laaste storie hiervan nie. Hier gaan nog reperkusies wees, spesifiek in 'n globale konteks.
BEE is 'n kriteria wat gebruik word binne in die formule. Maar dit is nie die enigste kriteria nie, dit is maar deel van wat in ag geneem word waarbinne maatskappye geëvalueer word. Ander is hulle 3 jaar uitvoervolume word in ag geneem. Hulle maatskappystatus word in ag geneem. Die wyn van oorsprong word in ag geneem. So ek dink wat hier gebeur het is dat die enkele veranderlike, naamlik die bemagtigingskodes, is ewe skielik gebruik as 'n stok om almal mee bang te maak. Onthou net, daai regulasies bevat geensins enige verwysing dat dit verpligtend is nie. En ons, wat nou al jare hiermee aankom, weet dit is inderdaad hoe die departemente toepas. So wat nie in rapport gesê is en ander kanale nie, is dat klein besighede wat se omset kleiner is as 10 miljoen rand, en daarin in ons bedryf is heelwat van hulle het outomatiese kwytskelding. Hulle hoef nie nou oornag te gaan SEB swart vennote inbring nie. Hulle is outomaties op 'n vlak 4 wat hulle gelykstel aan verskeie ander maatskappye. So kontekskrisis, Lise, ongelukkig dra hierdie berigte word wyd en suid in die wêreld versprei. Ek het gesien Bloomberg onder andere het rapport se berig net so geneem en vertaal, ongelukkig sonder feite. En dit maak dit vir ons baie moeilik in ons onderhandelings. Ons sien môre juis die Britse hoofkommissaris om te praat oor die Verenigde Koninkryk benadering, juis om dit uit te brei en te groei. En vir hulle lyk dit of die landbousektor heel moontlik nie wil transformeer of nie wil ontwikkel nie. En ontwikkeling deur die Europese Unie vir Suid-Afrika is gebaseer op 'n groei en 'n breë basisontwikkeling, en daarom moet 'n mens groot begrip hê. Ek sal heelwat voorbeelde vir jou kan noem waar hierdie selfde beginsels gelei het tot wesenlike impak, waar maatskappye hulle telkaarte verbeter het, waar hulle gegroei het, meer quota gekry het, en ook breë basis hulle werkers en ook ander partye opgehef het. So ek dink ons moet nie hierso heeltemal die dam onder die eend uitdruk met 'n enkele veranderlike nie. Ek dink dis 'n bietjie onverantwoordelik.